if I told you that we were sending $130,000 payments to some guy in the Taliban, would that surprise you? You think that's a good use of our taxpayer money? Listen to this.
Yeah, so it was by far the least peaceful agency that we've worked with, ironically.
Of course.
Additionally, we found that they were spending money on things like private jets, and they even had a $130,000 contract with a former member of the Taliban. This is real. We don't encounter that at most agencies.
Yeah.
What was the money going to the Taliban for?
So it was a contractor. They received $130,000 for generic services. And to Elon's point, there was not actually a clear description of what the contractor services were for. But
was it for opium?
Unclear.
Or weapons?
Or nothing.
Or nothing.
or abroad.
Or, nothing.
And you naturally have to ask the question, how did we get here? Like, when the country was founded, there were only 4 agencies. Today, there are over 400. So there's been a 100x increase in the number of agencies since the founding of the nation. And thanks to President Trump, he's now signed 2 executive orders to start to reduce the number of agencies in the government, and the Institute of Peace was one of them, which is why our team went in to try and understand what was going on. And that's when we found all of the craziness, like the weapons in their armory. We found the payments to the Taliban.
Okay.
So
try to hide the evidence.
Right. So just a few hours after we got into their headquarters, we found that their chief accountant had actually deleted over 1 terabyte of accounting records from several years. So you'd have to ask the question, well, why would somebody do that? And the Doge team, fortunately, was able to recover that data with the help of a few great employees at the Institute of Peace. And I think the most troubling thing was they received $55 million a year from Congress, and any money that went unspent, instead of returning that to Congress, they would sweep it into a private bank account, which had no congressional oversight. And that's what they would use to fund things like events at their headquarters and the private jets.
This is outrageous stuff. Do you fly in a private jet? Is that normal for you? No. You and I are just the suckers that get every April 15th, we got to pay our tax bill. And then Congress sends, appropriates X amount of dollars to these different agencies. And these agencies then spend them on whatever the hell they want. Now, why is it that they were able to do this? And one of the number one, to me, the worst thing in all of this is the lack of any kind of traceability of funds spent. If I write a check out of my general account, I have to say, what is it for? What is, what category is it? Is it, office expenses? Is it payroll? Is it, meals and entertainment? If it's something that I have to absolutely say what it's for. And they were doing any of this. Here's a Doge staffer talking about this yesterday. Again, this is on Fox News, and it's stunning.
One of the crazy things with regards to the Treasury is that when a payment is made, and the computers at the Treasury actually pay about $5 trillion per year, like crazy amounts, there was formerly not a budget code on there. So if a payment was made, you didn't know actually what it was for. It could have been for anything.
Yeah.
There was a $4 billion COVID fund in the Department of Education, and there was no receipts required, so people could just draw down on it. And when people looked into it, this wasn't us, this was before us, they found that money was being used to rent out Caesar's Palace for parties, rent out stadiums, et cetera. And so the one change that Doge made with the Department of Education is we had the simple requirement that if you draw down money, you must first upload a receipt. That was the only change that was made. You must upload your receipt. And upon doing so,
yes,
nobody drew down any money anymore.
Yes, but we didn't say that we'd check the receipt. You could send a fake receipt. You could send a picture of your dog. Anything. But as soon as we asked for anything at all, suddenly the requests were like, oh, we don't need it anymore. Huh, that's interesting.
They were renting Caesar's Palace.
Yes, they were like basically partying on the taxpayer money.
Stadiums.
Yes.
Leasing stadiums. For what?
For parties, basically.
For parties.
Yes.
Scandalous. All of this is absolutely scandalous. Now, the reason it lasted as long as it did is because I'm convinced both sides, Republicans and Democrats, had their hand in the till. I think they were able to buy off enough Republicans to never have any real opposition to any of this. But Trump is here to destroy and break up the machine that went after him. The biggest mistake that the Democratic Party made ever in the history of stupid mistakes the Democratic Party has made was to go after Donald Trump after he left the White House in 2021, because this is a man on fire and he is not stopping anything. And if we cut their funding, if we get all of this money cut, A, of course, we have hopes of balancing the budget, but B, this is their patronage network. This is how they bribe people. All this $50 million a year just, going into a black hole. And imagine, right, how many people you can buy off with that. Think of how many spouses of congressmen you can pay $200K a year to for a no-show job and make it so that family lives twice as well as it was living without that paycheck, maybe more, right? And suddenly, you're changing people's votes.